And join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Grimm.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you haven't heard, Mr. Salazar has left the city employment and has accepted a planning position with the city of Murrieta. So we're thrilled for him advancing in his career. To that end, Ms. Chow is going to call roll tonight. So.
Thank you, Chairman Rossler. Let the record show that all planning commissioners are present, and Student Commissioner Grace M. is absent, and Student Commissioner Van Hatten is present. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. Commissioners, we have the January 15th minutes before you. If there aren't any changes to the minutes, could we hear a motion to approve? Okay. Commissioner Looney motions to approve the minutes. The other technical glitch that is going on this evening is our monitors up front are not working. So, Commissioner Kramer.
I second the motion.
All right. We have it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 15th, and the voting machine works. Please cast your vote. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had some electrical problems here at City Hall, and we're not sure exactly what's going to work tonight. Our monitors up here that are in front of us are not working, although the voting worked. Staff has prepared handouts if we have to go old school, and they're out in the foyer next to the speaker slips. So if you want to follow along in more detail, they're out there. So we'll bear with us this evening. We weren't sure if the speaker system was going to work and what monitors were going to work. So, and the motion for the minutes passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Chow. Changes to the agenda, Ms. Chow.
Yes, Chairman Rossler. Staff would like to propose a modification on the agenda for tonight, and that would be to have a discussion item D1, which is the Civic Center Drive 26 condominiums go first tonight, and that would be followed by PH2, the Terracino Way Apartments, and last but not least on the agenda would be PH1, listed right now as the banquet hall and the performance venue. So if that is okay with the commission, that's what the proposal is on right now for the changes.
Any problems with the changing the agenda, commissioners? Okay, very good. Commissioner Jackal, did you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a disclosure to make then about the Civic Center Drive condominiums. Probably more than a year ago, I met with Mr. Plumadon to talk about the project, but haven't since.
Okay, very good. Any other disclosures for this evening's presentation? Okay, very good. Next item on our agenda is oral communications. This is a time that the Planning Commission sets aside for members of the public to address the Commission on items that are not on the agenda. I need to have a speaker slip, and I have none. Is there anyone wishing to address the Commission on items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, then we will move along to our first item, which is the early design review for Civic Center Drive 26 condominiums. Our early design review is not a public hearing. We will have presentations by the staff and the applicant. We will ask questions of them. Then we will open up to the public for comments. And then we'll close that portion of the meeting and provide direction. We won't make a decision on the project. So Chris, your presentation on Civic Center Drive condominiums, please.
Thank you, Chairman Rossler and Commissioners. This is planning case P18-0426. Next slide. And I think the chairman covered this. We can probably skip this slide. The project scope is a preliminary proposal to develop 26 condominium units on a 1.09 acre site located at 702, 710, and 716 Civic Center Drive. It's located on the east side of Civic Center Drive, north of Sierra Verde Drive. The site consists of 3 adjacent parcels, currently developed with 2 single-family residences and an office building. Proposed site improvements include 1 access drive from Civic Center to the project's central driveway, 26 one-car garages, 26 tandem parking spaces, and 13 guest spaces. The site plan would also include perimeter landscaping, private decks, and patio areas. This aerial shows the project location in the middle of the image with surrounding land uses and zoning designations. The project site itself is zoned mixed use 30, which is a maximum 30 dwelling units per acre. On the left-hand side of the slide, there's single-family residential, a 2-story office building directly across the street from the project, and Happy Times Daycare slightly to the southwest. Behind the project site, along Sabrina Way, is R1B single-family residential zoning. There's a 1-story office and commercial building to the north of the project site. To the south is Plaza 800, which is just north of the Harbor Freight. Next slide. These aerials show the project site looking at it from different directions. At the top left is looking northeast over the site, showing the 2 existing single-family residences with the dark gray roofs. And then there's a small office building to the north of those that's part of the project site. At the top right is looking at this site basically towards Civic Center Drive from above Sabrina Way. The bottom picture is a view from Civic Center Drive looking at the center residence that's existing on the property and the surrounding uses there. Next. Some of the project specifics, it would require a site development plan review by the Planning Commission. The project includes 4 separate buildings, a total of 26 condominiums. All condominiums would be 2-bedroom units. The unit sizes range from 891 square feet to 1,300 square feet. Proposed density is at 24 dwelling units an acre. The existing zoning allows for up to 30 dwelling units an acre. The height allowed under the zoning is a maximum of 3 stories and 45 feet. The height proposed is 3 stories at 39 feet. As for parking, there's 65 spaces required and 65 spaces provided on the preliminary plan. The zoning code requires at least 3,640 square feet of open space. The project proposes over 13,000 square feet, which would include private patio areas, barbecue area, tot lots, and open space areas. This image shows the overall site plan. Buildings A, B, and C have 6 units each. Building D has 8 units. Parking is shown in the site plan. It includes a single-car garage for each unit, open tandem parking in front of the garages. That would be for those same units, and also 13 guest parking spaces. Landscaping, the code requires minimum 15% of the site to be landscaped, or 7,122 square feet. Just over 18,000 square feet of the site would be landscaped, including bioretention basins. This slide shows a cross-section of the property with Civic Center Drive on the right and the back of a residence on Sabrina Way to the left. This would be, if you were looking at the site from the north looking south, and it would show the proposed buildings where they would be aligned in the heights as relative to the residence that's to the left. The next slide shows the first floor plan. Includes the kitchen and living area, single-car garages, stairways going to upper floors, and patio areas. This is typical of the 4 buildings. Next slide shows a second floor plan with bedrooms, stairway, and restrooms, and onto the third floor plan, kitchen, living room, and bedroom and deck areas shown. The next slide shows the architecture. There's two different color schemes. This shows a green and beige and a traditional architecture with some stacked stone patio walls and some window trim. The next slide shows the darker color scheme that's been proposed with the brown in place of the green. Same basic building architecture for both designs and all four buildings on the property or that are proposed. Staff requests that the Planning Commission provide comments to the applicant related to the proposed design of the project. No formal vote or action on this item is required or will take place, as the Commissioner mentioned. And that concludes staff's presentation. The property owner and designer Mike Mills are present to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Plamondon and Mr. Mills, do you have a presentation, or are you just here to answer questions? Okay, all right. Hang on, let me see if there are any. Okay, commissioners, any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Jackal. Oh, I may not have cleared it from last time. Okay, all right. All right, very good. Any questions of staff? No, actually we don't. Well, we do have one speaker. I take that back. Would you care to hear from the public first? Okay. Karen Linick? Did I pronounce that right? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Karen Linick, and I live directly adjacent to the property behind the buildings on Sabrina Way. And I'm extremely concerned about the height completely blocking any sun from my house and my view. I've lived here for 20 years, and I don't really mind that the property's being redeveloped, but I am concerned that the buildings are going to be too close to the fence and would prefer to see something where, because it's a very sloped piece of land, and if the buildings were at the front of the land, then the height of the buildings wouldn't be such a concern to me and my neighbors. But because so many of them are going to be right close to my fence, all I'm going to see is the back of people's houses, and they're going to look right into my yard. I wish that there was a way to do a mock-up that showed what the shade is.
Did you get an opportunity to look at the cross-sections that the applicant
I did, but they are small and not really useful.
Okay, all right. From what I see in the exhibit, the second floor is about level with your property elevation, so it would be like there was a two-story home next to your in your backyard. There is somewhat of a significant setback. It looks about the same as the distance to your home, if this is your home. So I understand your concern, and let's see if we can't find a way to address it.
Okay.
All right. That was the only speaker slip that I had for this item. So, commissioners, Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. Mr. Winters, are these units, condominiums, going to be for rental, or are these units to be sold?
They've been presented as condominiums. The applicant would have to answer that question.
Okay. Next question is the second floor. If I'm reading the drawings correctly, First floor has got the garages, and then it's got some living spaces. Second floor has got the bedrooms for the first floor and bedrooms, and then it appears that they go upstairs to access the living area. Is that correct?
I believe the way it's situated is there's 2 units in each segment of the building. So each section where you see 2 garages, there's basically 2 units from that point vertical. One of the units has a kitchen and living area and patio on the first floor with the garage access. The other unit just has a garage on the bottom floor. When you go to the second floor, there's a bedroom, I believe, for the second unit, and then they have their living room and kitchen room on the third floor.
Okay.
Whereas the other unit has its bedrooms on the second floor, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yep, with the living on the first floor. Okay, I understand. Thank you. It's all I have for right now.
Commissioner Gerritsen.
Yes, in looking at this, I reviewed the general plan, and I would like to read Lucy Policy 7.1. It says, maintain flexibility in the types of uses allowed in commercially and industrially designed areas to address changes in market conditions and to encourage competition, provided these users are environmentally safe and, here's the key, will not have adverse impacts on surrounding properties, businesses, and population. I think that speaks to the neighbor there, that these are going to have an impact. And in my view, one of the impacts is view, and certainly sunshine and traffic and architecture. But I have concern about the impact in a neighborhood that is single-family homes.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Jackal.
Continuing on that point of view, I wonder if it would be possible to have a perspective prepared showing what the people in the houses would see as they look at the new buildings.
Okay.
So the neighbors would know, and we would know what they would see.
Okay. Commissioner Bell.
Thank you. Mr. Winters, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but assume these 3 lots stayed separate and had applied to the city to build individual single-family homes. They wouldn't be coming before the Planning Commission, right?
That's correct.
And if those single-family homes were 2 stories in height, they wouldn't need extra permits from the city. Right now, they're single-story homes. Could the owner theoretically build a 2-story home within the bounds of their ownership of that property right now without much extra approval?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess the issue is, let's make sure that we ask the applicant to look into the view issue and show us a view of what the neighbors behind them are going to see. But from my reading of their cross-section, it really does appear what Chairman Rossler said, that they're digging out the grade here enough that the 3-story building is going to be pretty far below the grade of the homes behind, and therefore the view will be the equivalent of a 2-story home. Now, granted, that 2-story home is a lot closer to the lot line, but it doesn't appear that this is much beyond. Well, the height is going to be equivalent to someone building a 2-story house, roughly, and I'd like to confirm that. I want to hear that from the applicant. But beyond the fact this is multifamily with a larger building, it's not as high as it sounds when you just read the height of the building on paper. But I completely understand the homeowner's concerns living behind there and having your view, your sunlight, everything in the neighborhood changing. To address Mr. Gerritsen's point, I think a counterpoint to the change to the neighborhood would also be, or I guess one issue you brought up was this neighborhood is changing, and I think that the homes being developed in Paseo Santa Fe and then eventually further down where the KB home neighborhood is going in is going to make this more walkable. And I think any neighborhood, any development that goes in that adds to walkability, which lends to commercial shopping centers being improved and hopefully providing business with more foot traffic would be a positive thing as well, I would hope. I don't have anything to back that up, but, and if there's any disclosure needed, I live probably a mile from this area, so I drive by it every day. I use the shopping center there. I wouldn't be affected by this in any way that I know of, but I'm certainly familiar with the area because I live in that rough neighborhood. So that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Looney?
One of the projects that we looked at probably a year and a half ago, across the street from this was the retirement home. And during that early design review, discussion was brought up about the kind of the gateway to downtown and to Civic Center. And we had discussed the importance of the architecture and the massing, particularly on that street, so that it basically was a gateway to downtown. And I think for myself, when we view this application, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, that we need to keep it in context as to what we've looked at in the past and also what we're wanting to set as that tone to the entrance to downtown.
I would tend to agree. This is a prominent site as you enter into the city. This has to be, in my mind, a superior project. When we reviewed 100 Main Street, we said that was a home run, and this is a single, maybe to first base. And so I think a lot more attention to the detail needs to be done. In my mind, when you look at the distance between buildings A and C, and Chris, could you put the site plan up, or is that Patsy that needs to do that? If you go back and look at the distance between buildings A and C, between the parking spaces, if I scaled it right, it's 35 feet. It only needs to be 24 feet. So if those two buildings were brought together, it could move the buildings away from that back property line and reduce the impact on the single-family neighborhood. So that was one of the ideas I had. The other thing was we approved a project up on Taylor Street in East Vista Way, and one of the design features in that project was that they incorporated the retaining wall inside the building, so that the retaining wall was the back wall of the garage and the units were above. I think that system could be applied here and reduce the amount of retaining walls that are on site. I mean, we're getting grief about Delphi Corners retaining walls, and that complies, so I think we need to pay a bit more attention to that. Commissioner Gerritsen,
I just wanted to respond and say those concepts are great until they block your view. Those concepts are great to get close to public transportation until they have a negative impact on your property value and your quality of life. And those houses have been there 20, 30 years. They're all single-family homes on that whole square. There is not a three-story building in that whole square. And to me, that's what policy means. It means adherence. It doesn't mean concept, it's adherence. And in my opinion, that means that we should not approve a three-story building in that neighborhood.
Okay. Any other comments, commissioners? All right, let's go through our list of design aspects of the project and provide comments. The first one is site design and grading. And I think from my standpoint, my comments that I just made about the distance between buildings A and C and the grading, if I read the site plan right, the driveway slopes at a 5%, and that seems to me between those two buildings seems to be too steep. So some additional attention to the grading to make the development portion of it flatter could be, I think, is needed. Any other comments on site design and grading? Commissioner Looney?
Yeah, similar comments. The retaining walls somewhat abrupt on two sides of the property. And as you had brought up earlier, we've got 34 feet of distance between the parking spaces at one end, and we've got 20 feet at the opposite end. So I think there needs to be some offset. The building setback could be greater because we have that 34-foot. I think one of the other things that bothers me the most is the separation of those buildings in the back. They're 39 feet tall and they're 5 feet apart. That's going to convey a certain feeling when you're walking at the ground level with that narrow of a space between those two high buildings. And so, and again, as you brought up earlier, just the sensitivity to the topography, to the existing topography, I think should be a part of the next review.
Okay. Anyone else on site design and grading? Okay. Moving on to architecture. Comments on architecture? Commissioner Grimm.
Yes, a lot of my comments have already been mentioned by others, but we had talked a little bit at our last meeting about when you have two different densities of residential units next to each other, and I think we talked a little bit last time about the fact that if it's a single-family zone and it has something that's more in the moderate densities, it's not, you give it a little leeway. But when you have 7 or 8 dwelling units up against a 24 dwelling unit per acre project, I think there needs to be an emphasis on protection of the single-family product that's above it. So I guess to make that in a little more detail, I think that there's a number of things you can do. Some of them already mentioned, but in terms of roof line on the upper building, it's a very, very long roof line. I think you could go a long ways by doing something to alter that long run on the roof line. Also, somebody had mentioned that it needs to be a home run here. I think that there's things that could be done to dress it up. You have asphalt shingles, for example, maybe something else that could make the project look a little bit better. So anyway, I'll be looking when this comes back at particularly at the protection, what you're doing to protect the single-family units behind the project.
Commissioner Jackal.
Thank you. I have a bunch of smaller comments. For what it's worth, I prefer the green color scheme to the brown. I think that's less harsh. The garage side facades seem too blank to me. And I'm wondering if there is storage in the units. I didn't see any specifically in the plans, so that garages won't be used for storage. I'm wondering if there's a washer and dryer in each unit. When I looked at the third floor plans, I didn't see an indication of washer and dryer. So that's my thought.
It's hard to tell which on the second floor. There's washer and dryers on the second floor, but what unit they belong to is difficult to determine. You have to study it for a bit. Yeah, I think they belong to, the washer and dryers there belong to the unit that's upstairs. And yes, that is true. Okay, so washer and dryers are an issue in their location. So, okay, anything else, Steph? Okay. Commissioner Looney?
Thank you. A couple things on the floor plans. Looking particularly at Building A on the second floor, many of the for example, the bathrooms are really a substandard size. Scaling the drawings, we've got about 4.5 feet in width. For these bathrooms, standard width is about 5 feet. The closets, again, as shown, scale about 18 inches deep, and they really need to be about 24 inches to 26 inches deep. I think, again, I know they're conceptual drawings, but that's all that we have to respond to. One of the things that I think is important when we, as commissioners, look at floor plans is, as we do with each of our own homes, we put furniture in these rooms. And when I begin to look at furniture layouts in these spaces, it's going to be somewhat challenging in some of the rooms. And so I think that needs to be a part of the reevaluation of the floor plan, is to be mindful of furniture layout. One of the things that Commissioner Jackal brought up in this floor plan is, again, looking at building A, second level. It appears that in bedroom number 1, we're coming into like an entryway with an adjacent bedroom. And then we're having to walk upstairs to the kitchen and living area. So it's almost as if we're coming in the back door of that living unit. And then the wall configuration of the second or of the third floor is a little unusual. Again, somewhat challenging for furniture layout. So I would really have the applicant reevaluate the entire floor plan, because I think it can be improved upon. Okay. That was all.
Very good. For myself, it seems like when you look at the elevations facing Civic Center, it's like they've turned their back to the street, and that's the backyard. And there is a door that goes out, and a patio out there. And if I was doing it, I would make that the front door. I'd have a entry roof over the entrance, and I would put a gate in the patio wall, and I'd put a pedestrian system around the project that would enter into each one of those units. So I see that as an issue for myself. Any other comments on architecture? Seeing none, we'll move on to parking and traffic. Any items on parking and traffic? Commissioner Jackal?
I am concerned about the tandem parking. Maybe some of you who have more experience can tell me, but I'm worried that if that's going to really work.
The project that's up on North Melrose by the transit station up there, or as you get to Oceanside Boulevard, we approved tandem parking in that project. And the last time I checked with staff to see if there'd been any problems created by that, they told me no. Okay. So our local experience, most recent, says that it's working, but it is a concern. I mean, it is a way to conserve on the area going to parking and using that driveway as a parking space. So.
Okay, and the other thing I had written down was to be sure and indicate where there are sidewalks for pedestrians.
Yes. Attention to the pedestrian circulation would be a key component. Are we done? Commissioner Looney?
Just again, when they prepare a revised site plan, that the backup spaces work well. Again, the space on the most southern area, space number 31, that's opposite of space 30. There's 20 feet of backup space there. And this layout could be adjusted slightly by reversing space 31 with the bike parking, and that would be a step in the right direction. But,
Yep.
and also, we've got some parking striping, the stripes of the parking spaces that are different lengths. And so when I look at the graphics, I don't know if they're really 18 feet in length or if they're 16 feet in length. So I think some of the graphics could be just looked at again to make sure that they represent an accurate, or they're an accurate representation of what is being proposed.
Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also suggest, since we don't know whether these are going to be owner-occupied or used as rentals, that we be looking for a parking management plan, because there obviously is no parking along Civic Center, so it's going to make it tough if people aren't using their tandem parking and their one parking garage properly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. How about moving along to landscaping and amenities? A landscaping plan was not provided with the submittal, so we don't have anything to comment on, so we reserve the right to make comments on landscaping when the application comes back in. Commissioner Jackal.
And the narrative describes the amenities, but I would like to be able to see clearly where they are and what they are.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in where they say their common usable open space is located. Were you going to comment on that, Commissioner Gerritsen? Okay. They're using the side yard setbacks on the 4 buildings for their common usable open space, and if I had to make, I would recommend to them, and I know they're not going to like this, but to take out the 2 units that are in the center of the project at the north end of Building D, put all their common usable open space and their amenities centrally located in the project at that location. I think that would be much better. Yep. Okay. All right. I'm getting nods all the way around. So, that concludes our list. Any other comments from the commissioners on the project? Yeah. Yep. Okay. We've heard from the public. Commissioner Bell?
On that last issue, when the city works with this applicant again, maybe you could show examples from other projects that we've looked at recently where that central amenity plan seemed to be favorable. That might help guide at least what we've approved on other projects and give some direction as to what the city seems to be favoring right now. Thanks.
Yeah, this is one of those projects, you're all familiar with the American Institute of Architects awards program for orchids and onions. This needs to be an orchid, okay? So, any questions from staff or the applicant? You clear on our directions and our comments? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just chime in with some of the commission's comments. The zoning code for mixed use, it requires a washer dryer in every unit.
Okay.
So that would be a requirement. And also regarding parking management plan, it's pretty much become practice on all of our condominium projects and rental projects these days to require a parking management plan as part of the conditions of approval. So that's something they would be looking at in the future.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Plamadan.
I am, my name is Gabriel Plamadan. I live in Vista for 50 years, and I've been a small builder in the last 30. This might work against me, but it is what it is. I'm not a big builder from LA or Orange County, and I might have bought the wrong property at the wrong place, but believe me, the commission think that the Civic Center will be like Hollywood at one time, but it'll be 100 years from now because it's already built up. What I bought is 2 little houses there and an old office building that is no value. I don't know what's going to be done with it. If it's not approved, I will have to tear it down and build some houses, I guess, on it. But plus, I want to tell you where I come from. On Vista Village in Michigan, I don't know if you noticed, but I spent $30,000 in improvement in that corner to make the city better. In 1973, the city awarded me with a plaque for purchasing all the trees on South Santa Fe. Because of the engineer choice of trees, there's only 2 left. But I bought 100 of them. And so you can see where I'm coming from. I'm not a guy that want to take advantage of every little square foot or anything like that. And if you want to, like you mentioned, make a home run, where does that leave me? I'm not Babe Ruth, so I cannot make a home run. But, this is a beautiful project. What you have there is 2 little houses that are 100 years old, that's going to be torn down, and an office building that is 100 years old that's going to be torn down. And I can see the problem with the people in the back that obstruct the view. But at the same time, when you buy something and there's an airport and there's a plane flying over, it's the same old thing, it is what it is. You buy a place and you cannot control the neighbor if he's within the law to do what he should be what he's doing. So actually, some of the comment that I hear is it's too much for a small builder, I guess, but anyway, this is what it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmadon. All right, so that concludes our early design review, and we will, how are we doing on time? 1:45? Okay, we'll move ahead to the public hearing on Terracino Way. Mr. Ressler, your staff report when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Rossler, members of the Planning Commission. The project before you tonight is the Terracino apartment project. The application number is P18-0046. The proposed Terracino apartment project requires approval of a plot plan to retain an existing duplex, demolish an existing duplex, as well as construct a new 8-unit, 3-story apartment building. The site plan indicates open space parking and associated site improvements. The proposed 8-unit building would be 3 stories with covered parking at a maximum height of 39 foot 7 inches. Access to the site would be continue to be provided by a 24-foot wide driveway along Terracino Way. The subject site is located on the west side of Terracino Way, towards the terminus of the street. The project area is 0.3 acres. It's 1 legal lot, and it currently maintains 2 duplexes. Surrounding land uses include single-family residences to the east, apartment building to the north, single-family homes to the west, as well as an apartment building to the south. The general plan land use designation for the site is mixed use, which allows for up to 40 dwelling units per acre. The zoning for the site is Downtown Vista specific plan, specifically the transit district planning area. That area allows for up to 4 stories and a maximum density of 40 dwelling units per acre. The proposed project has been designed to maintain a density of 34 dwelling units per acre, which complies with the general plan land use designation of mixed use, which has a maximum density of 40 dwelling units per acre. In regards to the Downtown Vista specific plan development standards, the proposed project complies with all applicable development standards, the building height, parking, open space, as well as landscape. The site plan indicates the proposed three-story apartment building would be located along the northerly property line, as well as the retention of the existing duplex at the southwest corner of the site. Access to the site, again, would be provided by the existing 24-foot, 9-inch wide driveway along Terracino Way, centrally located along that frontage. In terms of parking, the Downtown Vista specific plan requires 1.25 parking spaces per one-bedroom unit. Based on what the project would provide, the apartment development would require a total of 13 parking spaces. The submitted site plan indicates 13 parking spaces will be provided. In regards to landscaping, the submitted site plan indicates 21% of the site would be dedicated to landscape improvements, which exceeds the specific plan requirement of 5%. In regards to amenities, the proposed project would provide a centralized barbecue area as well as turf area towards the rear of the site. Architecturally, the project would be 3 stories, a maximum height of 39 foot 7 inches. The architectural design of the apartment building would include a stucco exterior with gable asphalt shingle roof elements. Architectural enhancements would include horizontal wood siding, decorative wood outriggers, metal lattice screens, decorative railing, and a 3-tone gray color palette. Here's a perspective of the proposed building, which shows the building projections, articulations, as well as the architectural enhancements. The existing duplex that will be retained on site is shown on the lower left-hand corner. The applicant is proposing to paint and refurbish this unit to match the color scheme of the proposed building. In regards to floor plans, the submitted floor plans indicate the apartment will be 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and would range in size from 704 square feet to 988 square feet. This project went before the Planning Commission in an early design review on October 3rd, 2017. Since that time, staff as well as the applicant has made efforts to address the concerns of the Planning Commission. Those concerns include the potential transition of den space within the units to potential bedroom. The applicant has redesigned the floor plans to eliminate the den areas. However, there is one den located in Unit 201. Building massing and architectural continuity. The applicant has revised the proposed apartment building design to reflect a more cohesive architectural style with additional architectural enhancements. And finally, there was a concern in terms of lack of amenities on site. The design guidelines for the City of Vista for a project of 10 units would require 1 amenity. The applicant has provided 2 amenities, one being a centralized barbecue area, as well as an open turf area towards the rear of the site. With that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution approving a plot plan to demolish an existing duplex, retain an existing duplex, and construct an 8-unit apartment building for a total of 10 apartment units on 0.3 acres located at 150 and 156 Terracino Way. And that concludes my report, and the applicant is here to provide you a presentation as well.
Okay, very good. Can we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Rosie Cooper. I'm the owner of 150 Terracino Way. You have that? Okay. I was here previously for early design review, and my presentation will focus on the changes that we've made since the early design review. I've also met with some of my neighbors to the west, and I've done my best to accommodate their requests for privacy. And I have spoken with them additionally over the weekend. I know they're here tonight, and I am open to working with landscaping as much as practical to address any further concerns that they have with their privacy there. So Mr. Ressler did a good job covering the basics of my project. So here it is again, location-wise. The next slide there just shows the existing 2 duplexes on my site. And site plan here that Mr. Ressler also already reviewed. I thought this was the most important thing to discuss with you guys here today. At the top, you'll see the early design review design, and the bottom is the current design. So we worked to incorporate some of your comments from the early design review. You'll see we have more tower elements now, varying roof lines. Per your request, we've opened up the stairwell there, which provides more interest to the building, and we've added more wood siding in combination with the stucco siding. So next slide. This is just the north and the east elevations. Once again, the top is early design review, and the bottom is our current design. You'll see we were very intentional when we came in here before to have the 2-story element back up to my neighbors, that's single family at the back of my property. Unfortunately, due to the minimum unit size, which I know you guys have discussed at length, I needed to move up a 3rd story. The area that is on the 3rd story, we've done our best to concentrate all of the living area towards the north elevation so that we don't have living areas that will be looking down directly into the neighbor to the west. Here's the colored elevations here. So we've moved from kind of the brown color scheme to more interesting gray, 3-tone gray, as Michael pointed out before. And then the other elevations here, the top is early design review and the bottom is our current elevations. And then lastly, the rendering, which you've previously seen. And I am here to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good job on addressing our concerns. I still have some additional concerns, and we'll get to those. But commissioners, any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I wasn't here for the early design review, so my one question is why are you keeping the one duplex? Why aren't you just leveling the whole site and building from the ground up?
Yeah, the way the site lays out, it just makes most sense to keep that duplex. And those units are in substantially better condition than the 2 units to the north. And so we've chosen to refurbish those units.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Looney.
Yeah, question of staff. On the site plan, it's indicated that there's a 15-foot rear yard setback. Is there any side yard setbacks on this particular parcel?
Side yard setbacks are not required in the Downtown Vista specific plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant or staff? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sit close. I'm sure we'll have more comments. All right. Then we will open the public hearing up. And I have several speaker slips, so we're going to run the timer. You'll have, when I call your name, you'll have 3 minutes to come and address the commission on your concerns. And the first speaker slip I have is Katie Mendez? Melendez? Okay.
Thank you. Hi. My name is Katie Melendez. I'm a Vista native, and I have been working and living in this area for the past year. I'm a social worker in Vista, and I work directly with people who are homeless, so I kind of have a firsthand experience understanding the housing crisis that we're facing in San Diego right now. I also live in the neighborhood of the proposed project. I felt compelled to come to the hearing tonight because this project seemed a little bit different than some of the projects that have been popping up in our community the past couple of years. Because this project would necessitate the displacement of several families who would inevitably be priced out of their housing if this development were to occur. And since I am a neighbor, I decided to walk down the street to the duplex, and I chatted with some of the tenants there. One neighbor in particular, named Blanca, was very concerned about the project and didn't feel as though she could do much about it, which is part of why I'm here tonight. She shared that she pays $1,000 a month for her one-bedroom, one-bathroom duplex, and she has lived there for 5 years. She and I shared our frustration that affordable units like these are becoming rarer and rarer in San Diego. In fact, California lacks over 1.5 million homes for low-income families, and development to meet this need is slower than any other income level. San Diego itself lacks over 225,000 affordable units for low-income households. And when a unit is affordable, that means the household can cover all housing costs without spending more than a third of their monthly income on the rent. Alternatively, when a family is spending more than this, they are considered rent burdened, and 80% of San Diego renters are cost burdened. This makes it harder for people in my neighborhood and my community that I grew up in to save, to invest back into their community, and to experience a crisis without losing their home and experiencing homelessness. So for me, this isn't okay. To meet this demand for housing, I believe that we have to be putting more effort into maintaining and building affordable units, and to curb developments like these. Developments like these, I think, are foolish at best because they hurt our efforts to accomplish some of our housing goals in building and maintaining affordable housing. They're actually going to end up increasing the demand for affordable units because they will result in the displacement of those families. So unless the improvements include affordability, I would not recommend the Planning Commission go forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Pedro Perales, Jr.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the commissioners. I'm Pedro Perales Jr., and I'm the owner of one of the single-family homes right behind the west boundary of the proposed project. First of all, I would like to support and appreciate the effort of the Commission to provide more housing opportunity for people who like to live in downtown Vista, and especially those that work around here. My only concern is how the quality of life and our privacy will be affected once this apartment is fully operational. I understand that there was some effort to provide vegetation screening to provide those pharmacies. So I hope that when people started to move in, this vegetations are already in full maturity, hopefully, when that happens. And also, if the top story of the building would be a problem in terms of privacy, again, which we love doing, especially in our yard, relaxing, doing our yard work. Maybe some reconsideration how this whole development will be integrated with the rest of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Gail Frazier. We don't do that here, okay? Michael? Do you have an organized presentation for the three of you, or two of you?
Real quickly, my name's Gail Frazier. I live on Camino Patricia.
Okay.
And so I'm sort of here in solidarity with them. My concern is the height of the complex. They have pictures they can show you. I mean, it's pretty extreme. Another concern is traffic. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. And the noise issue, we've had a lot of problems with those apartments and that goes over there. We've called numerous times, and just adding more people. So that's a big concern too. So yeah, I wasn't really prepared to say anything. So, but yeah, it's really, when you see the picture, it's pretty extreme. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Stephanie Barden and Brett?
Brett and Stephanie Barden, and we live on Camino Patricia, just to the west of this project, and we're also concerned with the height of this project and how it will loom into our neighborhood that is all single-family homes.
It's basically taking away the view that we have, and we understand that progress has to happen some. But initially, her plans had a 2-story building closer to the west end, and then it was 3 stories closer to Terracino Way. And since then, she's changed it to be this massive structure that just goes up nearly 40 feet close to the property line, which is a direct view. I mean, you'll see there's some pictures coming. Our other concern is apparently the color scheme. It's a very light color on that wall, which faces west, which gets the afternoon sun directly on it, which is going to come shooting back into our front window and our yard and our home. And we're not real happy about that. And I think our third issue is the addition of more people on that property. It was said earlier that there's been call after call after call to the police for code violations, parties, noise complaints.
The sheriffs know the property well.
The sheriffs know the property well. It has gotten a little bit better, but putting that many more people on that property and
with an amenity space to party in too.
Yeah, is it gonna, it really affects our quality of life. Between us and that property, the property's there, there's our neighbor's house here, there's a street, our house is here, our bedroom is here. We can't sleep with our windows open on some nights because of the noise coming from that property. And so it really affects our quality of life. And so we're concerned with adding that many more people. What is gonna be the process to vet these people to make sure that they're not having DJs at all hours and big parties, and when it hasn't been happening up to this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Amy Reed?
Hello.
And you're Catherine?
I am.
Okay. All right. Good.
So between the two of us, we'll take up 6, if that's okay.
3 minutes each.
I want to thank you again for letting us come and speak. We spoke last time. We are the property just directly behind, closest to the structure. Karen will pass around some pictures. We can appreciate Commissioner Gerritsen's comments earlier on the previous project, because essentially that's what's coming to life for us. We're extremely concerned about the impacts of the addition of the 3rd story, 15 feet from our property line, which is adjacent to both bedrooms on the house, which was built in 1949. We purchased the house because of the nature and character of the area. You know, we were looking for single-story, single-family homes and privacy, and that's what we purchased for. We've invested a lot into that neighborhood, as have our neighbors. The area is revitalizing in and of itself as a single-family home neighborhood. So our front yard closest to that is where we spend our outdoor time, because the back corner is impacted by that other apartment building. And we did plant trees and do what we can to privatize that back area, but we haven't gotten kind of to use it much. It still feels sort of industrialized. It just isn't the greatest space. The front space we've spent a lot of time making really nice, and that's where we spend our time. That's where this building will be looming down at us. Now, we also appreciate Rosie coming and talking to us and the changes that she's made that help with our privacy as well. But I'm going to let Karen talk, because she's definitely had a little bit more time to look at it.
So I spent some time poring over the plans, and I appreciate Mr. Ressler taking the time last week to go over them with me and help me kind of walk through some of the engineering and some of those changes, some of the how we went from 2 stories right up against our line to 3. And I understand from Ms. Cooper that was because of she couldn't have a 500 square foot unit. So she had to go up another story or another level on those units to meet that 700 square foot requirement. And we were less concerned about the first design because it actually was 2 stories right up. And there's stuff we can do on our side to sort of mitigate that. 3 stories, 15 feet from my bedroom window, I can't do anything. And you see what it is. And I also, full disclosure, I'm not a landscape architect, I'm not a planner, so that was the best I could do with, paint. But the electrical pole there should be 40 feet. It is lower on our property, so the height is off. So I tried to kind of gauge of what the top of that building at 40 feet would be based on the scale of that phone line and the distance. And I did the best I could, but it'll be in that realm. And I know Ms. Cooper's talking with us has said that she would be willing to upsize some of her landscaping, her screening vegetation on our side. She's currently calling for 1 and 5 gallon bamboo. If we could minimum of 15 and 20, or maybe some 25, get some staggering of those bamboos in there so we have an immediate screen. I know that is possible. That can happen if the commission would support making that a condition, or maybe even putting in a wall or a fence, a solid barrier on the bottom, because I know she's going to have that as common area for people to be, hanging out and having their pets. And I noticed that there's turf is planned, and turf, if it's not managed and maintained correctly with pet use, can become a major issue, sanitation issue. It can be extremely smelly. And she mentioned that there are some enzymes and some things that you can do to prevent that from happening, but I would love to see that was actually a condition of the use of that kind of a material. The concern also with the power lines, if we've got a 40-foot building back there, the power lines are running at 40 feet, is she even going to be able to have the vegetation screening there at 40 feet to cover what we need? If right now it's being on the plans, it's right up against the property line. There's a 6-foot utility easement buffer thing in there. Is it even going to do what we want it to do? I'm not sure that the 24-inch box for the carrot woods, we're talking about a stick tree. Let's upsize those to a 48, or even a healthy 36 that can branch out if we're still sticking with those. Maybe add some more carrot woods, get some more definition. Is it going to be really silly to have a carrot wood with bamboo growing up right underneath it? Is it going to, if carrot woods only get, I believe the internets were saying about 25 feet, is that canopy going to prevent the bamboo from getting up to the height to block the building? So she had said that she was willing to talk and work with some of that. So those are kind of the biggest concerns that I had, but I really did want to thank you for hearing our concerns last time, taking them into consideration, reassessing the height of our side, the Community Patricia side, and taking that into account, because the single-family neighborhood is definitely something that we cherish, and the character of our home is going to be changed significantly if the project goes forward how it currently is planned. So, appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's the last speaker slip that I have for the Terracino project. We'll close the public hearing and open it up to discussion amongst the commissioners. Mr. Ressler, a question off the top of my head. The minimum unit size for this area in town seemed to be 700 square feet?
Yeah, I do. John, I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you have an answer on that one?
Yes, I'm fairly certain it's 700 for a 2-bedroom unit. For 1 bedroom, I think it's smaller, studios smaller, but we have minimum unit sizes that are citywide.
Right. Do we, as a commission, have flexibility with those?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. All right, Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, I had a question. I think it's for Mr. Ressler. And looking at the parking here, it's a little bit to me of a kind of a perfect storm. You have a situation where you have all one-bedroom units, so you've got a real low parking ratio. You end up with 13 spaces for 10 units. One of those is handicapped, so that's probably not going to be used that often. You really have virtually no on-street parking, and it'd be real difficult, I think, for a resident to be able to have 2 cars on site just because of the number of spaces. Kind of offsetting that is the fact that you have a transit center, very close. You also have some parking down the hill. I guess you might have to cross. If you were having some kind of a function, I guess somebody could park near Panera and work their way across the street. I guess my question is, and I'm new enough where I'm not sure I understand, how Vista, looks at the value of the transit center being so close, and maybe you could just kind of explain how, staff, how you looked at this particular.
Well, I know recently we did a parking study to reevaluate the standards that we have in terms of our multifamily residential development, mixed-use development, as well as our standards within our downtown specific plan. And as you indicated, the core of our city is basically this downtown Vista specific plan. It's close to the transit station, close to major bus lines, major thoroughfares and so forth. And with that being said, it's more conducive to having lower parking standards. Therefore, the parking standards in the downtown Vista specific plan are actually the lowest in terms of the parking requirements for multifamily residential development. In terms of parking on this project, yes, they do meet the minimum standards, 13 spaces. The plans indicate that there'll be some widening of the private street in front of the project. In doing that, it would widen it out to the width of 36 feet paved in a 46-foot easement. And the 36-foot pave would allow for parking on one side. So seeing that this side is being widened the first, they'd qualify for having the parking on that side. Therefore, it looks as though there could be potentially 2 parking spaces on the street as well. So with that being said, it goes up to about 14 on site and on the street as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gerritsen?
Just to confirm, there is no 3-story building anywhere close to this site, correct?
I think the only 3-story building in the area would probably be the Creek Walk that was approved in Vista Village.
Which is way down the hill.
Actually, that's across Vista Village.
Right.
Yeah.
And the second point is there are houses above this up the hill, correct?
There are apartment buildings as well as a limited number of single-family homes as well.
So this basically is blocking their view and from
actually,
the top of the hill.
It's apartment to the north and apartment to the south, so it's wedged with apartments. So there is single-family home to the rear, and I think the ownership has represented themselves today. However, it is actually located between 2 existing 2-story apartment buildings.
I can't remember how close this is to the top of the hill. So there's
we're almost at the end of the
property
street.
at the top of the hill, up the hill from this proposed lot. Correct?
I think there's 4 or 5 other properties that create the so-called cul-de-sac at the end of the street. But yes, so it goes 1 apartment, and I think it's 3 or 4 homes beyond that makes up the cul-de-sac.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Jackal.
Thank you. Okay, so on a positive note, I think the architectural detailing is much better than previously, so that's good. Although I do understand the neighbor's problem with the west-facing white wall. That's going to be glaring. I am desperately concerned about the parking. I drove over there on Sunday to look, and there was not 1 millimeter of that street area that didn't have a car parked on it. I mean, they were just cheek by jowl. Okay. And then as far as the amenity area, I think that is very minimum. And I wonder, is there even any seating around it? Because I don't see any. So that's all for now.
Commissioner Looney?
I've got some concerns primarily with massing of the building, where we've got an existing one-story structure that's to remain, and then probably 7 to 8 feet away, we've got a 3-story structure. So I think the massing could be better dealt with. Also have some, I think there's some opportunities to improve what we're doing on the north side of the property line. For example, where we've got the storage area, we've got one door into a very long and narrow storage area. I think that could be partitioned up. I know we've got gas meters there, but many times those gas meters can be stacked to reduce the amount of wall length by half. So that's an opportunity. Trash cans, we've got, according to the site plan and or floor plan, we've got a little over 4 feet to maneuver the trash cans from the parking area back to that north side. Those dumpsters measure 4 feet by 7 feet, and so you basically have about an inch of wiggle room. I think that could maybe be improved upon. And then they do use the staging area of that accessible parking space. So that's on the site plan. The floor plan, I think there's some challenges with room sizes. Again, very small spaces where I think this floor space could be better proportioned. For example, in a bedroom where we've got 13 by 15, and then we've got a living room that's 10 and a half or so by 11 feet. So there just seems to be some proportions that could be improved upon. That's all that I have.
Commissioner Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, well, can't go backwards. It wasn't here for the EDR that we had, early design review. When we talked the zoning in this area and we talked the parking in this area, I touted every time it's too dense, can't do anything with the parking. And now, as Commissioner Looney stated, we've got a 1-story, a 3-story. Parking will be an issue there, and it's just not available. I saw it during the week, and so people were at work, and even to maneuver for me to look at the site and back up, I mean, it wasn't easy. I think this is the wrong project for this area, and I understand and that Terracino in itself needs some help, needs some to be gussied up a bit, to be prettier. Well, I'm trying to be nice, but this is too much, way too much. So I'm only representing one vote, but I got to tell you, I can't support this project. It's the wrong project for this area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know, we've had a wrestle with this area over the past year. We went back and looked at the land uses, and for the folks on Camino Patricia, we recommended to the City Council that they leave your single-family neighborhood alone, and they chose not to do that. This is within a quarter mile of the transit station. This is where we're supposed to put density. The people living here can walk reasonably short distance to the transit station, so we should have a reduction in parking. And we don't need to provide all the parking if what all the experts in transit and walkability tell us is true. I have an idea, but and I'll float it out there to see what the rest of the commissioners think about it. In the floor plans on page 2 of 17 or 32 of 52, okay, we have the set of floor plans. We have the first floor and the second floor. In Unit 201, to make the unit size, if we understand what Ms. Cooper told us, has a set of stairs that goes up to the third level. And on that third level is a den, a patio, and the washer and dryer. And I would like to propose that we allow flexibility in Unit 201 so that the one bedroom fits in what's on the floor plan, and that we go back to the two-story element that was on the end of the project. I think that it would address the neighbors' concerns and give Ms. Cooper relief on the unit size requirement. And I think that's kind of a good compromise between the two. That's kind of where I'm at. And my problem is that I think this is a big enough change in the elevation, and we need the neighborhood should be able to see this change, that we ought to continue the public hearing, let Ms. Cooper redesign to go to the two-story element on that side, let the neighbors have a chance to look at it, and then come back and approve it. And then at the same time, maybe Commissioner Looney's concerns about trash and getting in and out can be resolved. Stephanie's comments on the amenity package and how that's going to work. The color on the west elevation could be addressed at the same time. Maybe the bamboo size could be addressed, gallons could be addressed from 1 and 5 to 15 gallon. So all those things could be addressed if we continue the public. I hate continuing public hearings because it takes a lot of time and effort to get here, but I think there's a solution out there, and I think we need to see it before we approve it. So, Commissioner Looney?
I think it would be, again, an opportunity to be flexible on that minimum square foot size, because there's some really smart designs on these mini houses to where you can utilize floor space for more than one purpose. And because the floor plan as we see now, as I see, it's somewhat forced because it has to be a certain size. But let the architect, let the designer kind of use their imagination and use the areas smartly and use a smaller space. I think that gives them some opportunity for both footprint, the building footprint on the property, and also opportunities for the floor plan. I'd like to address, too, just one thing about the bamboo. We've got to be very careful because there are some very invasive species of bamboo. Once it starts to grow, you can't stop it. And so I know it works well for a screening plant, but it can also be very invasive and some of the neighbors are going to have bamboo in their backyard and they can't get rid of it. So we just have to be very specific on the type of bamboo to try to get the height, to try to get the screening, but at the same time, not let it creep into other people's property.
Commissioner Grimm.
I'd just like to say that I concur with Mr. Rosser's idea to return it back to staff for modification.
Commissioner Rosler, it might be best that we have the applicant maybe come up and address some of these comments and potentially kind of give you feedback in terms of the redesign, if she has the ability to do so, and kind of give you some feedback.
Sure.
That might be appropriate at this time.
I'm generally happy to make all those changes. In fact, I would appreciate the opportunity to build a unit that is smaller than, I think your one-bedroom unit size is actually 700 square feet. I mean, to her point about affordable housing, we're finding now that people are paying for a bedroom and a kitchen and a living area. And that extra square footage is not something that they would like to pay for. So the smaller that I can make a unit, that's very marketable to us, and it's very economical. It provides a more economical solution. People are, they're buying the amenities, and in this neighborhood in particular, they're buying being close to transit, they're buying being close to the great downtown that y'all are cultivating, so I'm very happy to make those changes. I did review these trash bins with EDCO, but I'll certainly go back and get something that says that this would work for them. And otherwise, I'm happy to make these changes. I don't know if there's any way for the record just to say we're going to make these 4 changes and we can approve it now, or we can approve it at a lower level, because I understand this actually isn't the appropriate level for the plot plan to be approved at, and that we were moved to this level due to feedback from the early design review.
Yeah, so typically a project of this size is usually approved at the zoning administrator level. However, staff did not feel comfortable with the consideration of this project because of the concerns of the commission, so that's why it was brought before you tonight. It sounds as though the direction of the Planning Commission would be to make the changes, have the availability of the public to see them in an upcoming meeting, another venue, so we can confirm that it meets the expectations of the Planning Commission. I think that's their direction, but I just want to make sure on that.
I would tend to agree. Let me check with the rest of my commissioners and see if that approach is acceptable to them, and then we can make sure that she's got the right guidance, and when she comes back making those changes, she's going to get an approval here and not additional concerns. Commissioner Gerritsen.
I would concur with the chairman that the way it is now, I could not approve it personally. And I think the only way that's going to happen is if we see the impact on the neighborhood, make some of these changes, because I'm greatly concerned about the compatibility of a 3-story facility among a bunch of 1-story single-family homes.
Okay. Commissioner Looney?
On some of the more challenging projects that we've dealt with in the past, I've met with the applicant one-on-one in my office to kind of give an opinion of the design concept. So, Rosie, what could happen, you could, and this is, again, out kind of open, if you wanted to provide a couple concepts, a site plan concept, a building footprint concept, we can meet half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. I can give you some initial feedback on what direction I think you're going in. Because to get the drawing package to this level requires a lot of time and a lot of money. And so before you get this far down the road, just provide a couple simple concepts. And then again, if the commission is open to it, we can meet, have a little bit of dialogue. We can meet here at the office, or here at the city offices, but it might give you a little bit more guidance early on to where you don't have to go down that design road without spending a lot of money.
I would recommend that to you. That has worked well in the past when Commissioner Looney's our architect on the commission, so we rely on him for those types of input. So, Commissioner Bill.
Did you want to add some?
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear. The site plan itself, we're talking a trickle-down effect. So if we're making any substantial changes to the site plan, we'd probably have to have our engineering division review it as well, which could modify the stormwater report that was created for the project. So in terms of changing the actual footprint of the building, I'm not sure at this point in the game if that's the appropriate thing. Maybe some fine tuning, but not changing the whole configuration of the project. But I'm just a little concerned about that and having to go through that process and spending some substantial time on it either. So
I personally don't see, I see it as fine tuning the footprint. I don't see the footprint moving. I think changes in architecture, change in color, changes in landscaping are what we're talking about.
And maybe some massing.
Okay, and massing?
Massing changes, you're going to run up against the minimum unit size again.
But that's what
So
we want
if we're okay with giving you relief from that.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to add, Commissioner. I was going to say that I think that we should establish what we're okay with, at least within a range, to give the city some guidance so they don't come back with some 400 square foot unit that we all reject. But let's at least give some guidance there. And I think we trust Commissioner Looney to at least provide some initial feedback at the casual level that we can discuss here at a public meeting within the range of what's allowed within the city. I don't want to, he doesn't speak for the commission, obviously, but we do trust in general his architectural point of view, and I'm not the guy to talk our architecture to. Absolutely not. Bigger picture, I think that I support this solution. I think this also addresses the applicant is in a really tough place right now because they're having to meet these minimal guidelines that are out there with good design and good reason, but this is a really unique area. And as shown by the neighbors and what they're facing with their community backing up to a multi-family residential community, let's have some flexibility on this, but let's define that flexibility now so we don't come back and forth too often when they come back with a revised plan. And I would let Mr. Ressler add whatever you want from us to define it. Let's do that now.
So I think I've taken a few notes, so I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page. But initially, we were talking about eliminating the third floor for unit number 201, which is the rear unit, bringing that down to a two-story element, potentially some color changes, allowing for a smaller unit size in order to accommodate the revisions in terms of the massing of the building itself. Looking at the amenities and confirming that we have enough detail to understand the accommodations that are going to be provided within the amenity area, and trash can, making sure that the appropriate space is there to provide for the removal of the trash bin and bringing it out to the main drive. I think everything's pretty straightforward. I think the unit size, I don't know if we can work with the applicant, try to get as large a unit as we can. However, being able to reduce this area and accommodate her needs as well. So I'm not sure if we need a square footage amount. I think we could probably work with Mrs. Cooper in terms of coming up with a product that would probably work for the city as well as her.
Okay, I agree. Commissioner Gerritsen.
Yes, I would like to see some renderings of what the neighbors are going to see once this revision has been made, because that's a big part of the compatibility, this type of thing. Mm-hmm. But from the various perspectives, even the top of the hill, what's it going to look like from the top of the hill, from the neighbors as they come back? Because I think this was really telling.
Okay. Commissioner Jackal.
I just wanted to confirm then that we're moving toward continuing okay.
That was my proposal. Let me make a note to the neighborhood. Ms. Cooper is doing what our general plan calls for. She's providing transit-oriented housing within a quarter mile of the transit station, and we've got a compatibility issue trying to get, and your neighborhood on the existing plan can do the same thing. Although we saw the value of your existing single-family neighborhood as being stable and people taking care of their places and an asset to the community as single families. So just be aware that in the future, somebody else might buy a house on the street and come in and put a 40 dwelling unit per acre project on it, and they'll be consistent with our general plan, which will be another story. So anyway, Ms. Cooper, I really thank you for agreeing to the continuance tonight. I know it's a pain, and I apologize for that, but I think we've got a solution here, and we can work this out between everybody. So that being said, I'm going to make the motion to continue the project. Do we need to do a date certain, or will we re-advertise? Okay. Right. How long do you think it'll take for you to get back to the city?
You guys meet once a month, and I would like to have some time to go over the plan with Commissioner Looney, so 2 months.
Okay, 2 months?
Chairman
do you want
Russell.
to do it 2 months or just re-advertise?
We can do the remailing.
Okay,
We can do
we're
another
gonna
mail out.
re-advertise,
So that
so-
puts a little more,
Okay.
less stress on it.
So whenever you're ready, you come back to the city
Okay.
and we'll re-advertise the public hearing. So you folks will get another notice of the public hearing and have an opportunity to take a look at the revised plans.
Thank
so
you.
I'm going to move that we continue the public hearing and all the items that Mr. Ressler listed will be addressed in a redesign, and we'll come back at some future date that will be re-advertised. The public hearing will be re-advertised, and we'll decide on the project at that time. Second. I gotta have a second. All in favor, cast your vote. No, I have to look up there. And the motion passes unanimously. We're going to take a 10-minute break here. All the students from Rancho, if you want to come up, we'll sign your forms now, and then we'll get back together here in about 10 minutes to continue.
I told you, man.
You gave me the brush. How are you doing live, man?
Yeah, no problem. I did get notices in the mail. I figured 2 months, probably something like that. There's a lot of work to be done, so we'll see how it goes. But
You know, if she wants to meet, if you want us to come down, we want to talk about the vegetation, talk about the plans, talk about the
what I'm going to do is I'm not going to get in the middle of it. What I'll do is have her reach out to yourself and see if you guys can't meet and discuss this. That's what she mentioned. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I already got mine.
All right, are we ready to get started again? Okay, Mr. Connolly, your staff report on, finally, item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Special use permit before you this evening for a banquet hall at 306 South Santa Fe Avenue. This is about a half-acre property that's located at the southeast corner of Eucalyptus and South Santa Fe. The general plan designation is mixed use, and the zoning is downtown specific plan. Patsy, if you could move the slide for me. Thank you. This is an aerial of the site. It shows the property at the southeast corner of the roundabout. This is a building that was partially demolished and improved when the roundabout was built in 2016. The applicant actually gave me a number of photos to show you the renovation, which I did not have an opportunity to put in the slideshow today, but there was a lot of work done to the existing building to make it look the way it does today. It's about an 8,200 square foot existing commercial building, 19 parking spaces to the east of it there, all on one parcel, which has been combined, the parking spaces and the building onto one parcel. Next slide. The special use permit is a proposal for an assembly use within the building for private parties, birthdays, weddings, and similar private events. It would include a license for on-site beer and wine sales, which is a Type 42 ABC license. The proposal also includes a request for live performance, which could include ticketed and non-ticketed events. The maximum occupancy for seated events would be 184 patrons, and unseated would be 300 patrons based on the space that's available, subject to the building plan approval. Hours of operation that are proposed are 8 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. They do not actually intend to operate during this time. This is the window that they would like to have available in case there are special events and things that will happen during the day. Their general operating hours would be 4 p.m. to midnight. And they're here as well to answer or address their hours. There is on-site parking for 19 vehicles. There's an off-site agreement for 100 additional spaces at the community church, which I'll talk about. The site is located in the mixed-use general plan designation in the downtown specific plan. It's in the Paseo Santa Fe district in the far northern stretch of the district, also considered an arts and entertainment district. The mixed-use allowances within that district allow assembly and alcohol sales with a special use permit. The live entertainment use is allowed with administrative approval, but we've wrapped it all together in the use permit this evening. The assembly and alcohol sales, as I mentioned, are allowed with a use permit. The live performance venue is permitted with a live entertainment permit, which is issued administratively through the city manager's office. That's also a required condition of approval to maintain oversight of the live entertainment operations. The existing commercial building meets the applicable setbacks and design standards. There are some accessibility requirements that will apply for the improvements that are proposed. The project is located within a mixed-use commercial residential district that is designated as an arts and entertainment district, and so the use from the staff perspective is appropriate for its location. As I mentioned, there's 19 parking spaces in a existing parking lot in the rear portion of the property. They have an agreement with the Community Church of Vista for 100 parking spaces off-site, which is adjacent, and the conditions of approval require that parking be maintained. I also added a condition on the dais this evening for your consideration, which is a little more formal agreement between the church and the applicant to maintain that 100 parking spaces availability for the duration of their use permit. It would also, you can go to the next slide, it would also allow the church to identify when they have regular service hours and when they want to have the parking available for their own use, and we would identify what's called restricted hours, which would allow the church to maintain ownership and operation of the parking lot for their use and the applicant to use it for their events separately. There could also be written conditions between the two for special events and that kind of thing, which is what we envision, but the condition there really just formalizes that agreement. The community church is shown here behind the site. It's got 165 existing parking spaces. As mentioned, the agreement would allow them to use up to 100. They do have some nighttime activities during the week for youth ministries and other types of things. but typically the parking wouldn't use any more than 65 spaces, so they should have those 100 spaces available any night of the week that they're having activities. The regular services are on Sunday mornings at 8:30 and 10:30 a.m., so we drafted the provision that would allow the church to use the parking till noon on Sundays, unless they had written authorization from the applicant. But we'll have to work out the terms of that specifically and determine if there's any other restricted hours, and then the staff could formalize that agreement in the end. With respect to noise, there is a condition that requires a closed door condition at 8 p.m. There are also some interior improvements, some heavy curtains that the applicants discussed with us to block the noise from getting to the exterior, so we're working on that as part of their tenant improvement. They're required to maintain compliance with the city's noise ordinance and property line standards, so we'll monitor that through both the use permit and the live entertainment permit. In the event we have any noise complaints or issues, we can bring it back for further consideration. There are security requirements for any ticketed event that require at least one security personnel per 100 patrons. And then with respect to alcohol sales, they are requesting on-site beer and wine sales. Type 42 license. It's within a sheriff's beat that has a crime average. It's below our citywide average, so it's considered a low crime beat. It is over-concentrated with other licenses because it includes a number of licenses for the downtown area, but because of its entertainment type use in the district, the staff's not recommending against the license due to the over-concentration component. So with that, staff is recommending approval of a use permit for a banquet hall inclusive of an assembly use, a live performance venue, and a beer wine type 42 license at 306 South Santa Fe Avenue with the additional conditions that were mentioned that are on the dais before you. The applicant is here this evening and prepared to address the commission, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any questions for Mr. Conley? Commissioner Gerritsen?
Yes, just one question. Where the parking lot is, there is no walkway directly to the building. You have to walk across a grassy area through bushes. Is there any way we could mandate that they create a walkway? Because where that parking area is behind, you have to walk all the way back to the church and around to the sidewalk, and people aren't going to do that.
So they would have to cross the street. There's a stop-controlled intersection there, which is a legal pedestrian crossing location. We could require them to stripe a walkway in that location. We cannot, or at least our city traffic engineer is not supportive of putting a striped crosswalk in an uncontrolled location for safety factors.
But I'm talking about from the parking lot of this facility in the back.
To the building.
There is no walkway to the building. You have to walk across grass or walk around. Can we mandate that they put a walkway in there? I mean, it's only like 2 or 3 feet, but I think it could be a real safety issue because it does go downhill.
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Mr. Conley? Okay. Eric Wilms or Chris Amleto?
Hello, my name is Eric Wilms. I'm the owner of the property. I purchased the property in 2014 from the city of Vista. It's been quite a bit of work to get this building to where it is right now. I have a sore elbow from pulling 400 nails out of the ceiling before the ceiling was blasted. We have spoken to approximately 30 interested groups over the last couple of years since the building has been rebuilt. We feel the use the Booz Brothers Group has applied for is the best use we have seen for both the building and the downtown area. I work in the business park and have watched these local Vista guys build one of San Diego's best breweries. In addition, their woodshed venue has become a popular wedding and event space. I think they will do a great job at building, and I ask that you approve, great job at the building, and I ask that you approve their use. Lastly, I would like to thank the city staff, which has worked so hard on this for the last 4 years, from the sale of the building through this CUP submittal. I would especially like to thank John Meyer, retired, Kevin Ham, and John Connolly for their significant contribution to the success of this Vista business tenant. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions of the property owner? Commissioner Gerritsen?
Yes, with operating hours till midnight, and the closeness to the apartments across the street. The question is, what kind of noise level is going to be, does the city allow, and will that noise level filter over into those apartments? Because there are probably people going to bed before midnight.
So we tried to address that with respect to conditions of approval. There are property line standards that apply to the property, which are listed in the conditions on page 12 of 18. They are, 13 of 18. 60 decibels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 55 decibels from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So during that late night hour, they'd be held to a 55 decibel standard.
And what is there now? Decibel. What is the
existing
decibel
conditions
level
out there at nighttime? It's probably in the 40s.
So this will be more noise, but 55 should not be a problem for people sleeping in those apartments across the street.
No. 55 is what you get when you have normal traffic through that corridor during the day or higher. So we don't expect that them meeting the 55 decibel standard would create a noise impact.
Question number 2 is the apartments across the street, are there signs that would prevent people from parking behind that over toward the tracks and then going to this facility?
Within the development itself, you mean? Yes, there's no parking within the apartment project across the street other than for residents.
So they're
of the
protected
project.
from some big event taking up all their parking spots,
That's
at least
correct.
by signs.
That's correct, and management.
That's my understanding. Thank you.
Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this. If this is managed well, I think it's going to be a great boon, for the downtown. My question is, do you have a model of another local San Diego similar type club that you would use as something you would like to be?
I think the next speaker, Mr. Anacleto, is the one who's going to run the operation. He's probably the person to answer that.
Should we hear from the next speaker and then finish our questions?
Let's hear from all them and then do
Hello, my name is Chris Anacleto. I'm the general manager and co-owner of Booze Brothers Brewing Company in the business park area. We have been operating our brewery for 5 years, and over those 5 years, we've continued to grow. Part of that was getting more space in our building and building a private event area. It operates under our Type 23 brewery license, but we put a lot of effort into having weddings and private parties there. We also do live music at our brewery on a weekly basis, and this idea was to combine the two in a more downtown area. We actually looked at this building 4 years ago, and it was much too large for what we had in mind back then, and now we're more comfortable with it. And I have answers to all of your questions, but we have met with the apartments, and we've let them know what our intentions are, the restaurants, the church, obviously. Everybody seems to be in pretty big support. A big part of our business is bringing in outside vendors, such as food. So all of the surrounding restaurants are very much in favor, because any type of wedding we would kind of default to bringing in outside food, specifically places like Flying Pig, Belching Beaver, anyone who does catering. When we do live music, the intention is to have, 4-hour windows of music at most, and people would be going to neighboring bars, neighboring restaurants beforehand. I think food will really thrive in this area once we do live music. But weddings will probably be the bigger proponent of this space. A big reason for that is we book out weddings far in advance. So in our current facility, we book out weddings up to 2 years in advance, and that's what we've capped it at. We are signing a much longer lease with this spot, so we can book out weddings farther in advance. So it will be harder to book out plenty of music 2 years in advance when we could do weddings. So we're able to really gauge what amount of work, how loud, what size groups are coming in. Weddings will kind of cap out at that 184 number that we were talking about because of tables and chairs. So we have to leave room for walking, dancing, ceremony, all of that. As far as the walkway that you talked about, that was actually already part of our plan, so that won't be an issue kind of creating that. But I feel like because this is such a unique use and Vista doesn't have anything like this, I wanted it to be a dialogue between us and more questions. When you asked if there's any venues in San Diego like this, the answer is yes for the most part. Because this is kind of a combined use instead of just a wedding venue or just a private event venue opposed to a live music venue, it's a little bit of a mix. So by no means are we trying to be the Vista belly up, because that would be just music and that wouldn't work for what our use is. There are places in downtown San Diego, Loose Loft, you have Brick. These are places that are primarily wedding venues, but you can do other events in there. A lot of these places don't even actually have parking due to their area. So thankfully, we were able to make that agreement with the church. We gave the number 100. I feel like he would have given us more. Derek, he's the pastor of the church. He is being very kind and very in support of this project. I think if I would have asked him for 125, he would have given it to us. We made it very clear that because there's alcohol involved, that they would be comfortable with people leaving their car overnight in case they are not driving home drunk. He said he is very okay with that. One of our plans is to have security guards maintaining the outside area and making sure that nobody's doing anything that they're not supposed to. We also have a plan for cleanup at the end of the night. Any staff would be walking across the street, making sure that the parking lot is taken care of. We're very aware that our use isn't that of a church typically, so we want to make sure that we keep that relationship strong.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Commissioner Kramer?
I got lots of questions. First of all, Mr. Williams, beautiful building. It's just gorgeous. My concern comes in with a decibel that's in here. It says 60 dBs at 100 feet, I think. And when I look that up at on the internet, they say that's your typical conversational speech. How do you do music when you have to keep the windows closed and keep it at 60 dB at 100 feet?
Well, that's outside noise level, so inside the building it would be a lot louder. So they have to basically mitigate for interior noise to keep the noise inside from exceeding 60 decibels or greater outside.
Without opening those windows, those beautiful windows.
After 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Those windows were definitely placed there before we were ever a part of it.
Yeah.
For what our use would have been, we might have thought differently. One thing that we have brought in audio engineer to kind of look at the place and give us a heads up on what we'd be working with. He did suggest flame retardant curtains, very heavy curtains, that would block the majority of the noise that we'd really want to make sure wouldn't leave. So those windows would almost always be shut, very specifically with live music. It would also block people from seeing the live music without, we want them inside, not outside.
Yeah.
So it will block view and noise from the outside, and that's kind of our plan. Also, a lot of the design elements that we plan to do inside will be to absorb the noise.
So as an event site, if you have nothing planned on a Saturday night, it's going to be dark.
Yeah.
Won't be open.
But to put in, to reference that note, I have the next 2 years of Saturdays booked out for weddings at our brewery.
It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it's good. That's why we're doing another one.
Another thought I had while you were talking, we were talking about the parking. Does it have any merit if you had an Uber and a Lyft spot, pickup spot someplace, so that you encourage people to come in, drop off, and get Lyft home versus using as much of the church and the downtown and stay as long as you want?
Yeah, that is a large aspect of our brewery now, Uber, Lyft, all of that. So that could be an easy discussion to continue going with.
I mean, that was just a thought I had. Your business, you know how to,
Yeah.
what works. But
Thankfully, especially with the weddings, we partner with a lot of the hotels in the city, and a lot of the hotels offer shuttles. So, for instance, we had a wedding at our brewery the other night that I don't think any guests drove to. It was also pouring rain, so they definitely took the
So
shuttle.
you don't see an issue for you to have live music and maintain this 60 decibels outside?
Oh, I do not find there to be any issue with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Looney.
Yeah, John, I was curious if the North County Transit has decibel limits on the train that go through that corridor.
No, they don't.
Just so people can get kind of a reference point of the sound of that train versus the sound.
So if you're
being
talking
emitted.
about the freight train that goes through a few times a week, that's probably close to 120 or 130 decibels when they blow their horn. The Sprinter train's horns are like around 80, 75 decibels at 50 feet. The 60 decibel reference, though, is for an hourly average, so you could stand outside and talk to someone for an hour right in front of the microphone. You still won't be over 60 typically. It's because it averages it out. So 60 decibels is a fairly high noise level. It's typical of commercial areas and heavier urban areas, so I don't expect that they're going to have difficulty meeting that.
And to add on to that, we do intend to have our own in-house system with a DJ. So right now, we allow outside DJs to come in, and dealing with them is like herding cats from time to time. So one of the things that we very specifically want to do was be in charge of that here, so that we wouldn't have to deal with somebody going over the levels, and that being out of our hands, and then it becoming an issue, and then us having to say something to them.
Commissioner Bill.
Thank you. I feel like the city kind of buried the lead by not putting Booze Brothers on the header of the thing. But without tipping my hat too much, what is your plan for branding? Or do you have any intention of branding the building, the space, anything like that?
Yeah, so we do want to give this a different name than Booze Brothers. So that is a little bit more of an upscale spot, and it differentiates our brewery in the business park. One thing that we have noticed was a problem for Belching Beaver was when they created their second location. Very regularly, they had guests going to the wrong spot, so they created a name difference. So we do intend to have a different branding, but make it known that it's in association with us. We don't have any design elements for the outside yet, but we do want to make sure that it is classy.
From personal experience, I don't know if you've seen their wedding space. It's amazing. It's really, really attractive. And I can just, from personal experience only, I can say you manage your building really well. We've been there a couple of times, and security, rides in and out, taking an industrial space and turning it into an extremely useful brewery, not only for adults, but for families. And you'll see people with kids, and they have, it's a very welcoming space. So I have positive feedback from experience with your business. So
appreciate that.
Congratulations on getting the spot.
Very good. There doesn't seem to be any more questions or comments from the commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for hanging in and going last tonight. I know that was, you were expecting to be number one, and you're here longer than you anticipated, but we appreciate it.
No worries.
It
Thank
worked
you.
out some other things. All right, Commissioner Gerritsen.
I like this project a lot in terms of where it is, and I'm really impressed with who's going to be running this and owning it. The group has been here a while. They know the city. That's a tremendous asset to have that confidence. So I would move approval of PL 180440 with the caveat of creating that sidewalk from the parking area to make it safe to get to the building. I don't know if there are any others.
Would you add on the additional
and the conditions of the staff.
Okay, Commissioner Kramer.
I second the motion.
All right, Commissioners, it's been moved and second to approve the special use permit. Please cast your vote. And it's approved unanimously. Thank you very much. welcome to Vista. Congratulations, and we're looking forward to it. All right, so then we come to comments from the commission members. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bell?
Did I see that the City of San Diego Planning Commission passed an ordinance, or at least approved or recommended an ordinance to remove all parking restrictions related to transit areas? Yep, just heads up.
Part of the mayor's housing proposal.
All right. Commissioner, or Chairman.
All right, I'm getting a promotion.
It's getting late. Mr. Conley.
I have a few comments, thank you. We will not have a meeting on February 19th. The next meeting is canceled. In March, we will have one, maybe two meetings. We have a couple of items that were our public hearings, but we also have some discussion items. So once Patsy and I sit down and talk, we'll figure it out. But you at least are off the hook for the next meeting, and we'll notify you in February if there's a March 5th meeting. A couple items that I have coming are the gazebo area at Main Street and South Indiana. We're looking at the design. I think I sent you a notice of a meeting that we had. I know that it was a difficult time for most folks to make it, but it was really intended to get input from the businesses. We'll also have something on the city's website here for the next month, and then we'll bring it to the commission, present all that information to you, get some feedback from you on what we got, and then we'll go to council to discuss a capital project. So you'll have an opportunity to look at it. I didn't want you to think you missed that. I gave a presentation to the South Vista communities last week on housing legislation. Also updated a number of the council members. There's a lot of new housing legislation that's come out of Sacramento and a number of new bills that are on the horizon that are probably worth updating the commission on. So I'll also bring that, and we'll have a little presentation and discussion on that, just so you kind of are aware. The housing element process will start next year. It's going to be difficult this time because of some of the things we're saddled with, so I'll try to give you an update on that. The compatibility discussion is still on my list, and I will bring that forward too, so maybe we'll bunch a couple of those up and have a meeting where we can have some discussion items rather than the public hearings. And then one thing that I wanted to bring up that I heard tonight again was minimum unit size. I know we talked about eliminating that a couple of years ago, but I got direction from the commission that they wanted to keep it in place. I think it's probably time to relook at that, maybe not eliminating it, but it's certainly reducing it. On almost every single multifamily project that we have come before the commission, particularly any of those that are looking at affordable units, they always struggle with the minimum unit size. They're really large units for what the market bears today. So we'll bring that back too, and we'll discuss it over the next couple of months. We do have a dinner with the city council that's coming up. I think you should have it on your calendar if it's not February 20th, right? So you don't have a meeting on the 19th, but you get to go to dinner with the council the night after. Just a couple items from the council. They are looking at the pole sign item that we looked at last meeting for freeway-oriented pole signs on the 12th, so we'll have a public hearing to finalize that. They are discussing second units on the 26th of February, so based on one of the council members' requests, we will be discussing. I know a lot of the jurisdictions around the county have been waiving fees and making it easier for second units, so we'll have that discussion at the council level, and any of those changes that we get direction on, we'll bring back to the commission. And then finally, we got all of our Prop Z apps. I think we got 33 applications. We are vetting those right now, and we do have some preliminary information out on the city's website, as well as a map that shows the eligible locations. But we'll have final information about where the eligible applicants are toward the end of this month, and I'll make sure I update the commission at our next meeting. And that's it for my update.
Very good. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gerritsen?
Yes, I would just like to say how much I appreciate what the city has done with the maps in terms of reassuring people. And Mr. Connolly did a great job of mapping out where these pot shops could go. And I think that reassured everybody else that, because they took into account state regulations as well as Prop Z. And initially, I was concerned that it would be just the Measure Z restrictions, but that made a world of difference for the city, I believe.
Okay. All right, very good. If there's nothing further, we'll stand adjourned potentially to March 5th, and they'll let us know when our next meeting is. So thank you very much.